And I would like to start with a huge trend right now. Is about the upcoming of the Bitcoin ETF, the spot ETF in the US. We heard about it quite every discussion we heard about this news. But the question is, what is really an ETF? How it works concretely, and why it could be an issue for the SEC to authorize the coming of this kind of financial product. Cyril, perhaps you can help us on this.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. We launched in Europe and in Melanion Capital the first UCITS ETF on the Bitcoin thematic. So maybe what is important to understand before entering into the details, and in particular talking about the spot Bitcoin ETF, is to understand the difference between the American regulation and the European regulation for ETFs. It's completely different. In Europe, when you want to invest on an ETF, and when you go and see an institutional investor saying, okay, I have an ETF to sell you, to sell you and to propose, the first question is it UCITS? What is UCITS? UCITS is the highest standard in terms of regulation for a fund in Europe. And in Europe, all the ETFs are UCITS. Why is it complicated to be UCITS and to be based on the Bitcoin? Well, it's quite easy to understand, because to be UCITS, you need to be diversified in particular, and you need also to invest in regulated financial instrument. So you can understand that when we decided in Melanion Capital to launch an ETF on the Bitcoin, it was not an easy job, because Bitcoin, by definition, is not diversified because it's one asset. And also, Bitcoin is still not a financial regulated instrument. So we tried to find a solution to launch a UCITS ETF, an ETF on the Bitcoin in Europe. So we tried to find regulated instruments that would be close to the Bitcoin. And we realized that the ecosystem of the equities of the crypto ecosystem is larger and larger. And so we are all engineers, I am a statistician, we try to find a solution to build a product, a solution with equities, but with a really high correlation to the Bitcoin. So what we did, in fact, it's quite simple, now that it is done, but we analyzed this ecosystem of the equities, and we realized that we can divide this ecosystem into 4 sectors. The miners, the blockchain technology equities, the crypto financial equities, I'm thinking about Coinbase, for example, and also companies which own cryptos in their balance sheet, for example, MicroStrategy. So with this ecosystem, we have approximately 100 equities. And so to build our ETF, we decided to select the 30 most correlated stock according to with the Bitcoin. And we also weight them according to the correlation. And thanks to this methodology, we managed to have a really, really high correlation with the Bitcoin. Our beta, which is a mix of correlation and volatility, is close to 1 to the Bitcoin. And so we managed to launch this ETF in Europe. And what is interesting with such an ETF is that it is eligible to all saving plans in Europe, in France in particular, and also in insurance life wrappers, which is not the case for the Bitcoin. So that's for the European view of the Bitcoin ETF. In the US, it's completely different. It's really more flexible. You don't have these constraints I just described, the diversification, the fact that we need to invest only on regulated instruments. But there is one difficulty, and often people ask me, but I don't understand. There are already ETFs in the US. You know that there is a very famous ETF called the BITO. BITO is an ETF launched by ProShares, and which is based on futures. So people ask me, but why all these people are mad with a spot Bitcoin ETF? The real difference is that the ETF, which already existed in the US, is based on futures, is not a pure, I would say, exposure to the Bitcoin, because it's not linked to exactly to the spot. So why does the SEC take all this time to accept such a spot Bitcoin ETF? To understand this, you need to understand that the futures, in the Bitcoin futures in the US are on regulated exchanges. But it's not the case for the spot. The Bitcoin today is not traded on regulated exchanges. And that's the real difficulty for the SEC to accept such an ETF. But what happens in June 2023? There was a big actor, to use a euphemism, who enters the game. Within the game, it's BlackRock. And the fact that BlackRock enters in this area changes, I would say, everything. Why? First, because all the institutional classic investors, now that BlackRock is in the game, I would say, are okay now to have a look at the Bitcoin ETF. To give you our example in Melanion, when we go to see insurance life companies or institutional investors and we are presenting our ETF is eligible to all their wrappers. And they say, no, you see, it's on crypto, so it's difficult for me. There is what we can call a psychological barrier. The fact that a leader like BlackRock is now in the game is changing everything. And I have insurance life companies who, I would say 6 months ago, told me, no, we are not interested. Now they call me back saying, okay, I remember your product. It could be good to have another discussion. So it's really interesting in terms of institutional adoption. We need also to be aware of something. BlackRock decided and asked the SEC for an approval for approximately 576 ETFs. They only received one no. So if they want to launch such an ETF in the US, normally they know what they are doing. The other point, it's positive for the institutional adoption, but it's also very positive for the Bitcoin. You can imagine that the force in terms of distribution, the power of BlackRock in terms of distribution when such a product is launched is just massive. So we will have massive inflows on the Bitcoin. So, you know that the Bitcoin is what we call inelastic. I mean, the demand is inelastic, so it means that necessarily the Bitcoin will go up.
So basically, having an ETF allows any retail people or company to get an exposure to Bitcoin without necessity to have Bitcoin, the assets, to have it. So it allows them to enter and to get an exposure to these asset classes without necessity to handle all the technical difficulties in terms of custody, in terms of security of the Bitcoin they could have. The innovation is you invest in companies which has an activity related to Bitcoin. So it's an indirect exposure to this industry. And ETF is now is the most attractive investment wave for UCITS, and BlackRock, of course, is a leader of this industry. But in terms of ability for customers, for companies to have a custody, a sure custody about the safekeeping of Bitcoins, do you think that CACEIS has something to do with what is the positioning about this situation for you? Do you think that you can help some providers which provides financial instruments related to Bitcoin to help them to enter in this industry?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the question. CACEIS is the asset servicer, which means the back office of the market. So this is our main, well, what we do every day. And it's not fun, but it's useful. And to develop this ecosystem, well, for institutional investors, it is important, or you cannot do differently without having a custodian. So this is, well, in this panel, we will speak about investment industry, institutional investors. You will hear a lot about compliance and regulation. And this is, if you don't have the necessary, or at minimum, the right compliance and the right regulated players, you will not have institutional money in the ecosystem. Well, CACEIS is, in June this year, we have the registration as a PSAN, prestataire de services sur actifs numériques, to do the custody of digital assets. Today, we do custody of security tokens that we already have in place, and we have tokens of bonds issued by European Investment Bank, and we're going step by step to other digital assets. This is the idea behind is to offer the right custody solution necessary for institutional investors. So we're moving toward building an offer where the investor do not have to manage private keys. Well, this is an offer with the same standards as of security as for traditional assets. No investor data goes into blockchain or to other providers, technology providers that we were working with. And the most important thing is the segregation of the accounts. Well, we all know that when you open an account in an exchange, your money is in an omnibus account, is not segregated. This is why, well, we had a lot of problems with FTX, for example.
How do you manage the security of the private key? Where are they stored? How do you manage the access?
Well, for this, we're working with a technology provider, which is called, his name is Taurus. And
in Switzerland, if I remember.
Well, it's a regulated fintech from FINMA, and that offers the possibility. Well, I'm not going into details of how it works, but the main point is that the assets in the wallet are always available for use, so we can provide a solution for even dynamic asset management, not only just buy and hold and keep it on cold wallet. It's very, very, so the assets are available, and it's CACEIS who does the custody. It's not Taurus. So this is important.
Thank you for sharing your vision into this. So it remembers us the impact that institutionals could have on the evolution of digital asset markets, and more especially on Bitcoin. Do you think that depending on different investment strategy and product which will come, they will contribute to the increasing of the price of these assets, or do you think that there is no impact?
Yes, for me the impact will be huge. As I said, the fact that institutional investors now are looking closely to Bitcoin is, well, due to BlackRock and the fact that, as I said, they are in the game. But we need also to understand another element, which is the fact that now cryptos, and I'm going to talk more particularly about the Bitcoin, are considered as an asset class in their own rights. Why? If you analyze the performance of the Bitcoin, for example, in 2023, Bitcoin is outperforming all other asset classes. That's the first point. The second point, if you analyze the correlation between the Bitcoin and the classic asset classes, I'm thinking, for example, about the gold, silver, or even equity indices, the correlation, the year-to-date correlation, the daily year-to-date correlation is around 20%. So you can see that you have a product, you have an asset class that is outperforming the others and which can diversify. So when you have diversification in a portfolio, you have less risk. And so, well, this is something that people are more closely looking at. If I give my example, the example of Melanion and our ETF, we are talking to a lot of wealth managers. And so when we talk about our solution, they tell us, wow, it's a good idea, it's perfect, because, well, a classic wealth manager, as in general, I would say psychological and also more technical barrier to invest in the crypto ecosystem. So if we propose to this to the wealth manager a solution that can be easily integrated in the portfolio of their clients, well, they're really happy and they have something to propose. They have a possibility to diversify the portfolio, and moreover, they have a lot of demands from the clients. And it was complicated for them to propose something that it is in line with the classic standards of the wealth management.
Eron, do you see also an increasing demand about an exposure to Bitcoin from your own clients?
Well, it's we coming out from the crypto winter. So it's we should keep this in mind, and we see demand from the wealth management coming back on cryptos, either people who don't have experience on it and see that they missed two rallies. And now maybe, well, they're thinking that the third, they won't miss they don't want to miss the third rally. Or people who, have the money of their sons or nephews, and they want to integrate them into their the property of the.
So when we take a look about the history of Bitcoin, the first demand comes from retail people like you.
Yeah.
Second demand comes from companies, and the thirds are coming from institutionals now.
Well, this is we'll really at the beginning of this. I would say that for the moment the big demand is from tokenization, the usage of blockchain for the tokenization and the delivery, and so for the settlement and the delivery. So we have a lot of experiments on this part. Secondly, on the usage of cryptos and investment in cryptos is still to come from institutional investors, either because they are not yet ready, they don't have the permissions from their regulators, either they don't have the teams to prove that they have the capabilities to do it. So this is still a niche. But well, we see more and more. Well, even the analysts in the banks producing research papers. So, well, everyone is is preparing now, and I would say that which is different now from before is that maybe this time the hype on digital assets will start from institutional investors, no more from the retail. So this is something that we have to be really attentive and see how it will come.
So what we know is the offer is limited, maybe 21 million bitcoins, not more. Now, more or less, we are at 19.5 million already issued. So it means that we know the demands, we know the offer, and the demands looks like to increase from time to time. So basically, it means that the price could, from years, goes up. But it allows us to question ourselves about how could we evaluate crypto assets, because traditional metrics from finance, like free cash flow for equity, for example, cannot be applied to this. So do we need to create new tools, new metrics, new criteria to properly evaluate those kind of assets? Do you think that we need this kind of process?
Well, yes, it's quite a difficult question. The real question, I would say, is the question of the institutional adoption and what is behind cryptos and behind Bitcoin. We are talking about centralization of the demand, but for something that can be decentralized, that should be decentralized. So that's the real, I would say, problem. And purists are, I would say, a bit afraid of what is...
like Bitcoin maximalists.
Exactly, absolutely. What is happening with BlackRock, because you see more and more traditional finance actors coming in this world that should be completely decentralized. A good example is what is happening with Binance. The new CEO is coming from the traditional finance world, and I would even say from the regulation world, the financial regulation world. So, well, for me, it has, I would say, a certain, well, the view must be, well, people need to be aware that now the complete decentralization won't be completely there. You see what I mean? There will be a mix of decentralization and decentralization, but maybe decentralization will help the adoption of the cryptos. So we can't reject it completely.
That's a good point of view. And I think we can ask to the audience directly, if anyone has the possibility to keep yourself, your own assets, do you will do it, or do you prefer to use an intermediary for that? And I'm quite sure there is no consensus, 100%, because some people prefers, for responsibility, for safety, to use a third-party service for that. And we cannot handle it for that. So Bitcoin is suffering the same view on that. And did you see, as a centralized actor who provides this kind of centralized services, do you think that we have seen important increasing demand about the necessity to have a third party which offer this kind of services?
Well, for the institutional investors, it's mandatory. So you cannot do differently. An asset manager who manages third-party money cannot be custodian, cannot have the keys of the wallet for the fund that he manages. He needs a custodian, a regulated custodian. If you want institutional investor money comes in this business, you have to go this way. So it's no choice. Yeah, it's no choice.
So I'm quite sure that everyone has his own opinion about this subject, but you raised an important point about the necessity for supervising authority to clean the market. It means that we really don't want to allow new actors to enter in this industry, and the regulation has been built for that. And the best example we can reveal is MiCA. As a bank, as an asset manager, you just have to make what we said, an opt-in. So it means that you just have to say hi to the IMF, we want to provide this kind of services, and we have already compliance with all the requirements you ask. So please give me this agreement. So it means that traditional finance institutional will be the first to move in this industry, because this is the reality. And in US, it's more threatened, like here in Europe, because the SEC has no trouble, has no problem to say, okay, we don't want you here in US with this kind of actor, with these people. That's why we suggest you to change your management, to change your human resources, to make sure that you will cooperate. You know? And do you think that this strategy from the US and the European one are a good strategy to improve the protection of customers, or do you think it could just improve the reduction of the competition in this market?
The real difficulty is the lack of clarity of the regulation in the US. And that's the main problem. We have MiCA in Europe, but we don't have anything. And all the crypto actors want more clarity from the US. You can see that Coinbase is asking the US to be clearer on that, but they don't want. Because if they give a clear regulation, a clear view, they will not have the possibility to do what they did for Binance, for example. And also, because we are just at the beginning of what happened with Binance, well, I would be the IMF, I wouldn't be in a good situation now, because as you know, Binance was accepted as a PSAN, prestataire de services d'actifs numériques, so VASP, Virtual Asset Service Provider, by the IMF, the French regulator.
Under the PAC law, not MiCA, under PAC law.
Yes, absolutely. But you can see that the regulator accepted Binance, and we remember when Binance arrived in Europe, in Paris in particular, it was huge, etc. So, well, it's a bit problematic. I think that maybe with what will happen with the spot Bitcoin ETF, it will force the US to be a little more clear on what they want and what they require on the crypto world.
I think you raise an important point, because for people who don't know, in US there is a specific act regulation, the 1933, which allows companies to issue securities, but we don't have clear definition about security. The Article 4, if I remember well, just says anything could be a security because you have made a purchase based on expecting a gain. So it means quite everything could be. We have seen it with ICOs, we have seen it with STOs, and now we've seen it with this kind of application. And in Europe, we have another approach. It means that the regulation defines clearly in terms of legal qualification everything. And if you are not in these boxes, the regulation cannot be applicable to you. So that's why I think in Europe we have a huge interest to attract a lot of companies here in Europe because of this ability to have a clear view, a clear legal treatment about their own activities. You requested the PSAN registered, and probably
we have it.
Yeah, and probably you will request for the agreement based on MiCA. But did you receive some specific question about the IMF and ACPR about the legal qualification of your activities? Do you have anything to share with us about the view of the regulator, the authorizing supervisor?
Well, having the PSAN registration, well, now it will be the preparation for MiCA, is quite demanding, and it's a very long process. You should really prove that you have the capabilities, you have all the
human resources,
the human resources, the funding. You have so for CACEIS, it took. I would say 8 months to have it. And CACEIS, well, is a bank, has a huge balance sheet, so no problem to prove that we have all the necessary what is demanded. But still, it's very it's complicated. And now, with the preparation for MiCA, which is the next step, fortunately, well, MiCA is inspired from the French law, so for us as French players, it will be a bit easier, but still, it's a next step of it's even more demanding. And I'd say that, but it's in the good sense, because we need regulation. Some people here in this room knows that. Well, I come from the asset management. I've been portfolio manager for years, and I'm a strong believer that regulation and innovation can go together. So and now we are in this part where the building of the infrastructure, the market infrastructures, need this combination of innovation and regulation.
And do you think that with the arriving of the digital euros will help retail, institutional, to be more comfortable with this kind of assets, which needs a blockchain infrastructure to be exchanged, which need a wallet for safekeeping? Do you think that it will help to enter in digital asset market?
Well, the digital euro, in my point of view, will help a lot for the transition between security tokens and the usage of those instruments. For example, today, if you tokenize a bond and you want to sell it to a second hand, to the secondary market, you cannot do it because you don't have the on-chain cash leg. You cannot pay in euros on-chain. You should use either stable coins if it is possible or not. So the euro, the digital euro, will, I'm sure, will help, will be a big help. But for the implementation of the digital euro is a long process. Fortunately, the ECB is putting a lot of pressure on the banks. But well, it's technically is complicated. It's either we will have 2 digital euros, 1 retail, 1 wholesale. Then, if for the retail one, how do you? Where will the wallet be? The wallet will be at the EC bank or at the commercial banks. Well, there are a lot of technical considerations. Well, we at Crédit Agricole, because CACEIS is one of the banks of Crédit Agricole, we're participating in these discussions with the ECB. I'm part of work groups, and it's a long process. There are a lot of technical considerations that we need to have in mind. But of course, the digital euro will be very helpful for the financial industry. But well, we still need to work a lot on the implementation.
Cyril, do you share this view, or do you have a different opinion?
Well, the short answer is no, because I think that the digital euro by itself is not necessary, but there is something that is really important, and that was said by Eron, the fact that it will help to potentially remove the technological barrier people have using cryptos. And so if they need to do it, if they must do it, they will take the time to understand what is behind the tech part. And so, at least for that, it will be useful. Then, in terms of use, it's well, it will help for the real world asset tokenization, and also for what has been described, for example, the bonds that can be tokenized, or any element that can be tokenized. It will help, of course, to buy them, and as a use, it can be yes, useful. But for me, the most important part is the technological barrier that could be removed with such a move.
So be ready. Digital euros will come. Probably commercial bank will open the wallet for you. If you know how works a wallet, perhaps you would have a better view about the quality of services delivered by those companies. And digital euro will for sure open new opportunities for settlement, for infrastructure settlement, to allow us to be more comfortable with this technology, to be frictionless. For example, you use internet every day. Do you know exactly how works internet in terms of functionalities? I don't think so. Why? Because the question is, know how it works, but what is the benefit to use internet for you? Exchanging information with anyone at any location, and to make online services and businesses. And with blockchain technology for finance, it's offer new way to get an exposure to this kind of new asset classes, to improve the settlement. So it passed from 2 days to 2 business days from a minute. So it's improved the way we can exchange the money, how it could circulate it. That's why it's obvious for a central bank to go into it. And on my own opinion, I think it is the ultimate form of money. Because for the first time in history, you have the ability to print the money or delete the money from the current situation. And for example, now the rates we have, interest rates we have, the only way for a central bank to retire some money from the market is to increase the rates. This is one of the way they've chosen. But if they have digital euro, perhaps they don't need to use this kind of monetary policies. They have new choices. And I hope, to be honest, it will help us to improve our own economy and our own financial ecosystem, and the arriving of new alternative asset classes allows us to have a diversification and not to be too much dependent on a specific asset. So for me, it's a huge thing it's coming, and I would like to thank you for sharing your expertise on this and your honesty about this difficult subject, and I hope for the audience